This is Raf Sayeed, and welcome to the Shaun Newman podcast.
Hey folks, welcome to Monday. Welcome to the starter of your beautiful work week, wherever you're at. Most likely sitting at home like the rest of us. Now you're probably wondering, hey Shaun, it's Monday. What are you doing? Well, I was thinking, man, I got a lot of time on my hands. And why not release a couple more episodes? I've got a list of people I want to talk to. They're trapped inside. And so I've started doing it all via computer. You probably heard that on the last couple episodes. And so what I'm going to do here for the foreseeable future, until this COVID-19 thing decides it wants nothing more to do with our minus 20 weather up in Canada, is I'm going to release an episode on every Monday and Wednesday. And so I guess my mindset is, A, I got the time, but B, talking to people is just such a stress relief for me. And I know everybody's feeling, cooped up and whatever else. And this is one way I get to relieve some of that stress. I enjoy talking to people, enjoy hearing people's stories. So I'm going to be releasing one every Monday and every Wednesday. Now, a couple of shout-outs. I've been slacking. And Chris King had sent, Jeez, Redden's voice is unreal. Yeah, no kidding. If you don't know who he's talking about Trevor Redden, the voice of the PA Raiders. He was in it a couple episodes ago, and he isn't lying. He's got a wicked voice. There's a reason he's where he's at. Timmy Priest just finished listening to Chris Weeb's episode and heard Kurt's yesterday. He's talking about Kurt Bensmiller. Friggin' beauty job, man. Unreal stories, and hearing those things kind of makes a person feel like he's walking the walk with them fellas. Just wanted to say nice job, and hopefully see you get a raise in the fall of 2020. Yeah, me and you both. Now, if you are a company out there and want to get some free advertising, let me know. I said it on last week's episode with Jason Greger that anyone that needs to get a message out, they're open, home delivery. Ooh, bumping things. I kind of talk with my hands, folks. If you need, you got shortened hours, your doors, whatever, the policies have all changed, let me know. And I'll get you on for free. No charge right now, okay? Here's your Factory Sports Tale of the Tape. Today's guest is Raf Sayeed, born and raised in India. He became the national rowing champ of India at one point, graduated from med school, traveled abroad, finally ended up in the bustling metropolis of Lloydminster, where he got on the inaugural board of Junior A hockey. Yes, the Lloydminster Lancers that brought the Junior A hockey to Lloyd. It's almost hard for me to believe, even as I say it, that a guy from India who had never seen a sheet of ice, let alone a hockey game, was now on the board. Pretty cool story. And then he spent 40 years with the Lancers, which turned into the Blazers, and then the Bobcats. He was a part of the Allen Cup. He's got a very cool story, folks. I think you're going to enjoy this one. So sit back, relax, and without further ado. Well, welcome to the Shaun Newman podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Dr. Raf Sayeed. So thank you, sir, for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about your life and some local sports, because you've definitely been ingrained in that. Maybe some rowing club, maybe some stuff like that.
Oh, I love that.
But I think maybe the first thing we got to do is, COVID-19, coronavirus is, how many times have we wash hands, sanitizer, everything, right? It's such a, it's all anyone's talking about these days.
Unfortunately, that's so true. My only advice is, if you don't have to go out, and just don't go out. And if you do go out, stay 6 feet away from anybody. And to those who suspect they have a cold or a cough, please, for God's sake, stay home. Don't go anywhere for 14 days, because you run the risk of infecting others. If you have to go to a store, make sure you are 6 feet away from anybody who's in the store. And if the store seems busy, go back later.
I thought you had an interesting thing on the phone when we were chatting. I was saying social distancing this, social distancing that, and you kind of corrected me with physical distancing.
That's so important to remember. We need social integration. We need to be talking to people, and sometimes it could be misunderstood social distancing. The important thing is physical distancing, and they're starting to talk about that on the television as well, because internet, telephone, all is social integration or social inclusion. So, but physical is a more definite, you can grasp at it. Physical, 6 feet, physical distance. Whereas social doesn't really grab it for me. I understand what it is, but for the average person, what does social mean? Whereas physical means stay away from me, stay 6 feet from me.
No shaking hands.
No shaking hands, no hugs, none of the above.
Has that been tough on you the last couple of weeks?
Well, it has been, because I haven't been able to hug my daughter-in-law. I haven't been able to hug some dear friends, and came close today, and I said, stay away from me. And it was hard to tell ladies, stay away from me, don't come near me. But that's important. It's very important, very important. It doesn't matter if you know the person really well or not. We have neighbors in our cul-de-sac, and one lady, she's a hugger, and she says it's so hard, I can't do that. But that's the way it is, and that's the new normal.
Yeah.
And maybe this will go on for 3 to 6 months. Stay away, physical distancing.
As you know, as listeners know, I love talking to people. It's different. It's different not being able to converse with everybody on a daily basis, or meet anyone, or go for a coffee or whatever you want to do.
Can't give anybody a high five. You can't do anybody the pumps. It's not easy, but that's the new normal. We've got to get used to it. That's what it is.
What do you say to the people who say it's just another flu, Raf?
I think they're having nightmares in 3D Technicolor, myself, if they think it's just the flu. It's a nightmare, and it's not a flu. It is nothing like a flu. It may have the distant relative of the influenza, if that, but no, it's not. It's a different brand, and it is more vicious. And if you have the symptoms and it progresses, it will kill you unless you are able to get some kind of support. You get nausea, you can't eat anything, you get headache, you sweat, you fever, your chest is tight, you can't take a deep breath, and you have a cough. It's not like the flu. It's not like the flu.
In your career, did you ever deal with anything similar to this? Or is this once in a... I mean, I know they bring up 1918, 1957, SARS, stuff like that. But around this area, have we ever seen anything?
We've never seen anything like that. As far as I know, we've never had a case of SARS here. 1957, I wasn't around. I was born, but not around here. No, I mean, I have had pneumonias and stuff like that, but nothing where... and of course we've had some asthmas, which are bad, but nothing like what I've heard symptoms of people who've had it.
Well, let's start. Well, you were born back in 1950 in, now am I going to say this right? Madras, India. And the name has now been changed to Chennai, but I prefer to call it Madras still. And I was doing some looking. I don't know what it was when you were born or when you were there as a child, but now it's about 7 million people.
7 to 8 million people, that is correct.
And so I'm curious what growing up in that was like.
Well, yeah, I can tell the difference since I've been there a year ago, and when I grew up, streets were actually empty and pleasant to drive on. There were no traffic jams. It took us 10 minutes to go to school by car. Today, that same distance, if I had to go to school in a car, or my children or somebody has to go to school, will be 45 minutes. It's only a distance of about 3 kilometers, 3 to 4 kilometers. Right now, the place has changed. There was only one skyscraper, and it was 13 stories high. And that was an office building belonging to an insurance company. Today, it is skyscrapers everywhere, residential skyscrapers everywhere, office buildings everywhere. If I hadn't been going regularly, it would have been unrecognizable.
How often do you go back?
Every 2 years, every year, sometimes every 2 years. I started going every year sometime in the year 2000.
Okay.
Just to get away from the winters for a month. But I've been with the kids at least every 3 years with the kids when they were younger.
What's the weather like in our winter? Or what's the weather like there, I guess, just in general?
That's the only time to go is in our winter, from November to maybe March. Otherwise, they have 3 seasons. It's hot, hotter, and hottest. Summer is exceptionally hot. Can be 104, 105 in the shade, maybe sometimes go up to 108 in the shade. But the winters, November, December, January, February, usually it's in the from anywhere from 18, 19 at night to, say, 26 in the day. So it's very pleasant, and that's why after the kids grew up, we went in the winters.
Now, going back to when you're a kid growing up there, guys of your age around here were going to walking to school, we're going to a one-room schoolhouse, we're dealing with several different shades of cold, colder, and coldest. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your school days growing up in India.
Well, my elementary school was in a school that was run by the Jesuit order of Catholics. It was called the Church of the Good Shepherd Convent. And the first 5 years were co-ed. Then after that, I went to an Anglican missionary school. Now we had lots of grades and lots of classrooms in the elementary school. It was not a one-room school, grade 1, grade 2, grade. There was 2 grade 1s and 2 grade 2s and 2 kindergartens. And similarly, when I went to the Anglican, the middle school and high school, they were combined. There was at least 5 classes in each grade. Or 5 rooms in each grade. And following that, I went to college, again to Loyola College, which is again run by the Jesuit order. And then I went down to med school.
You say co-ed for the first 5 years, then am I to presume after that it was all boys?
After that that school was all girls, and we had to go to a different school. And that was the school run by Anglican missionaries.
Why? Do you remember why that was?
Because they didn't believe in co-ed, and the nuns were very strict and they didn't want boys and girls to mingle. They were quite conservative, and so we were cut off from the girls, and we had to go to a total boys' school.
What was total boys' school like?
Oh, it was fun. It was good. And we enjoyed ourselves. We entertained ourselves. We didn't miss any girls. We were quite content and happy, playing the things that what young boys used to do, robber and police and, cowboys and Indians and all those things which are kind of not really politically correct these days. But we played all the games that probably kids played here. We played cricket. We played soccer, which were there we called football. We played softball. Basketball, and what's come back we played pickleball, and it was not called pickleball then. It was called padded tennis, because the same kind of bat, except the screen, the net was low down, just like pickleball, and so we played everything that people played here. I don't think we played baseball.
I liked a comment you'd sent along was youngest in the class, so not physically developed for land-based sports. Were you trying to say you were small and that essentially you couldn't compete?
No, I was big, but I wasn't developed, and I was sent to kindergarten. I missed kindergarten. I was in grade 1 at age 4. So you imagine the kids who were in grade 1 had already been to a lower KG, upper KG, grade 1, and they were all 6 years old, and I was 4 years old.
So why was that?
Because my mother did not believe in kindergarten. She thought it was a waste of time, and she managed to get me into grade 1 at age 4.
So do you think that helped you?
Well, that's why my handwriting is so poor. I failed handwriting in grade 1 because, again, it's important for development to go through those stages, physical and fine motor. I don't know if it helped me or not, but I don't think I was hindered. It certainly didn't help me in sports because all the kids were 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
Right through, and until I started swimming, where that was a leveler. But land-based sports, athletics, I couldn't compete with boys who were 2 years older than me in the class. Even though I was big, I was not small. I was big.
So were all sports school sports then, Raf?
Yes, all sports were school sports. All of them.
So it always went on grade and not age then.
It went on grade. Swimming was was all the other schools, and there it was not grade or age. It was age differential, like you have here. From 6 to 9, you're in one category, and 9 to 12, you're in another category. And there I did all right. I was a competitive swimmer, and I did quite well, actually. I won quite a few swimming championships or races.
In your younger years?
In my younger years. I was swimming till I went to med school. Competitive swimming till I went to med school. My last swim race was a 1,500 meter swim. I remember that. That's the last time. And I think that was in first year med school.
Why'd you quit swimming?
My parents said I better go work on becoming a good doctor, and I have to work hard and enough of competitive swimming. But I went swimming for exercise, but not competition, because you had to work really, really hard to stay competitive. And so I did swim, but I didn't race in any competitions. So I just swam to stay fit.
Do you still swim?
Not much. Then I took up rowing.
Yes, I've heard about this rowing. So how do you stumble into rowing?
You used a fantastic word, stumble. Literally stumbled into it. A fellow who was 1 year my junior in med school, it was 1970, wanted me to teach him and correct his style of swimming. So we went to the swimming pool, and after spending an hour and a half, he said, "Can we swing by the rowing club?" So I swung by the rowing club with him. I was in my car, and there I saw all these shiny, long boats that I only seen pictures of, and I had maybe seen the odd movie with these boats, the Oxford, Cambridge. And so I was stung by it, but I knew that I was in med school. I knew that my parents would not allow me to join the club. So anyway, this fellow was interviewed by the captain of boats, and they said to him, "How tall are you?" He said 5'8.5". "And how heavy are you?" 150. And they wanted to have a competitive team, and they'd set a upper limit of or a lower limit of 5'9", and it had to be 150 pounds at least. So then they looked at me, and I was 5'11 3/4 and about 175, 180 pounds at that time. And they said, "Would you like to try?" And I said, "No, my parents won't let me. I don't think I should even try." I said, "Think about it." And then they said, if you last 30 days, we'll take him. And I have an animal brain sometimes. I don't like people challenging me like that. So I said, I'm in. I'll figure it out how I'll tell my parents later. So I said, I'm in. And 30 days later, I said, I hung on. It was very vigorous, hard. The buggers, sorry I use that word, they tried to break me. And I didn't break. And so then he got in. And that's how I stumbled upon rowing. And I've never regretted it.
So how long did you row for?
I rowed for 4 years.
In university?
For
the university team?
No, for the state. There was club teams. So you rowed against other clubs. And you rowed against clubs in Asia, as far away as Hong Kong. And you rowed against them because they were all clubs in those days. India did not have a national team or a rowing federation, so you just rowed against clubs in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, in Hong Kong, Singapore. Clubs like, they all had clubs. It was started by the British. Rowing was started by the British. So I rowed for 4 years, and then I left for Canada via England.
Let's stay with rowing for a second here, because you've kind of been all over the place with rowing then. Well, in my mind. I don't know the distance.
Yes. First of all over India, you had to go to different clubs because they had annual races, regattas in different locations. So it could be in Calcutta one time. It could be in Pune, which is close to Bombay. It could be in Madras. It could be in Sri Lanka. And so you travel all over the place. So yeah, been to quite a few places. It did help me travel, but I didn't get to tell my parents for 3 months. I forgot to tell you that. They didn't know about it. I was sneaking away in their mind to the swimming pool, because that I was allowed to do, but not rowing. Till one day, I won a major event, and they wanted me for the prize distribution. And I said, I can't come. They said, you have to. Your team is going to be there. I said, my parents don't even know I'm a member of this club. So one of the club members, senior members, said, I know your father. I'll call him. So I went home, and sure enough, he called him. Luckily, my father was into sports, not my mother so much, because my mother said, you have to study. So my father says, how long has this been going on? I said, for 3 months, 4 months. I said, I see. He said, all right, you can go for the prize distribution. So that's how I became legally in the rowing club. Until then, no. So it's interesting.
How about your parents? You said in the text you were raised very strict. What does very strict mean?
Well, I had curfew. Even when I was in med school, I had curfew.
That your parents enforced?
My parents enforced 9 o'clock. And of course, when I was rowing, I was double curfew. My rowing coach will call at 9 o'clock. I had to be in bed at 9. So it was double. My parents made sure, and my rowing coach called my parents and said, is he in bed? So 9 o'clock was curfew all the time. It was only after I was in my residency that there was no curfew, because now I had to go to the hospital and stay in the hospital, so that was fine.
Can you imagine in this town, in this country, your kids are in university and you're calling for their curfew?
I know. They'll probably tell you to go to hell. Not probably. I'm sure they will say go to hell. Oh, it was quite strict. And you know what? I don't regret it, because otherwise I don't know if I would have finished medicine. I like to play a lot. I like to have fun. So I'm glad my parents set some rules down, and it worked out okay.
How many years were you in university?
7.
7.
Yeah, including med school, yes.
Did you always want to be a doctor?
Not really. Initially, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I wanted to be a politician. I wanted to help people. My parents, said becoming a politician is like rolling the dice. You may not be able to help people, but being a doctor, you would definitely be able to help people. And it's a guarantee that you have a good chance of making sick people better. But a politician, you can't change the universe because you got to work with so many other people. So I said, okay, took their advice, and also they took me to some other people who also gave me similar advice that being a lawyer, you have to be a lawyer first, and then you have to try to get elected, and then after that, if your end game was going to become a politician, it's unlikely you would become one, and if you do, it's unlikely you'll be able to do anything to help people. So,
what do you think of the politicians we got running our country and down south, Trump and Trudeau?
I think politicians are not the politicians of the old days where they served the people. I think today they serve themselves. I'm sorry to say that. Many of them, I shouldn't generalize, that many of them want to serve themselves. It used to be that being a politician was a noble thing. It was service to your fellow people and your fellow humanity. But now when you see the class of politicians in the world, especially our leaders, many of them are there for themselves and want to stay in power. It's disappointing, but again, young people don't want to get involved in politics because of that, and it's a catch-22. If young people get involved and then they choose the kind of person who they want to represent them, then it'll be a different story.
It'd be nice if there's some people wanting to run for politicians, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right. Some good people need to run, and we have some good people now in Lloydminster. I'm quite pleased with our current representatives, but I don't think that's the same everywhere. I don't think that's the same.
You can almost guarantee it, Raf. That's not everywhere.
That's not everywhere. Not everywhere. Guarantee. You're right. Like, I know of politicians who don't return phone calls to their constituents. I know of politicians who say, I'm at a hockey game and I don't want to be disturbed. Call me in my office on Monday. Like, being a politician is not a 9-to-5 job. If you want a 9-to-5 job, you should go and choose something else.
When you graduate from med school, did you want to leave India? Was that something that you'd kind of grown up with, thinking, I'm going to leave here? Or did you love it there and you wanted to stay?
I left India, so I'll return back in 5 years. I promised all my friends. I was going to make a stop in England because of England's history with India. I then was going to go to the United States, because at that time I thought at that time United States was the greatest country in the world. Since then I've realized that it is not. And then Australia, because it was exotic, and go back to India. So, go around the globe.
Okay, so where did you first go then?
I went to England.
Whereabouts in England did you go?
I was in a place called Leicester. Well, my first job was up in northern England. Then I was in Leicester.
And for a year?
For 20 months.
20 months, okay. Yeah. And what did you think of England?
England was nice, but it was time to go. It was time to leave because I wanted to go. So I actually...
How old are you at this time?
At this time, I was 26.
26.
I came to 25. I hadn't turned 26 when I came to Lloydminster. I was still 25. And
were you married at all?
No.
No kids then? No marriage? Nothing. So you're just a young guy bouncing around the world being a doctor.
Footloose and fancy free.
Never had a thought of staying in Britain?
No.
Okay, where do you go after Britain?
All my friends were in Britain. And they're still there, many of them, my classmates.
Really?
They wanted me to stay. No, I said, I'm going back to India. And the reason I ended up in Canada and not in the United States was my sister lived in Edmonton. And she said, if you're going to stay in the North American continent for a year, why not come and stay close to us as a family? So she was in Edmonton. I found a job in Lloydminster.
Did you never, before we get to Lloyd, did you never make it to Australia or the United States then?
No. Well, I went to the United States just to visit friends, and they wanted me to stay there. And
Where did you go?
I had my papers. New York. I was in New York. I had my papers. My cousin was chief resident. He said, I can get you a job here, like any time. Meanwhile, my sister says, come and be with family. So family is important, so I came. And after all, it was only going to be 1 year.
Growing up, did you guys travel lots?
Yeah, I traveled a bit, not lots. Traveled with my parents. Traveled with the rowing team.
What would have been like?
But I did want to travel the world.
But was Britain eye-opening for you when you landed there and you're like, oh, this is Britain, or were you just off the plane and you're like, geez, I thought it'd be different?
It was, well, English. I could speak English. English was a common language. And we grew up with a lot of British traditions, English traditions. So it wasn't that different.
How many languages can you speak?
Three.
Yeah. English,
Urdu, and Tamil, the language of my native state, the state where I was born in, Madras.
3 languages, yeah. That's something that's... Did you ever teach your kids that?
I tried. My oldest son, he can understand. My second son, somewhat. My third son, even less, and my fourth son, not at all. He can't. I don't
Sammy
think
can't.
He can't even say water. I don't think he can say water. Sammy can't say water. I'm sure.
What did you think when you landed in New York? Because I mean,
New York was different. It was different, not like England.
No,
it was totally different. It was an eye opener. New York was an eye opener. See, you read about a lot about British history and English history, so you knew much of England already before we got there. But the U.S. we didn't read that much. We knew about the War of Independence, and I personally took on learning about U.S. and because of the Second World War and Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy, and I kept track through the news, and I even memorized John Kennedy's inaugural address when I was 11 years old. So, and Abraham Lincoln, I memorized his speeches because my father raised me to be a citizen of the world. So I remember his Gettysburg Address of Abraham Lincoln. So, but the city of New York and the hustle and bustle was different.
When you say your father raised you to be a citizen of the world, could you expand on that?
My father was a very liberal, broad-minded person. And he taught us that there was more to the world than just Madras, our home state, or India. So many a time we would have visitors from other countries, from the brogue spoken by a Scottish chap to the Englishman to the fellow from the USA to somebody from Nigeria. So we used to have lots of visitors. So, and my father was involved in a lot of social justice activities, so that's how he came across all these people. And so he said, you need to know about the world. So I grew up with a special interest in reading different parts of the world.
That's pretty, I think a lot of people should have that, that opportunity, like to learn about outside their bubble. It can really expand your view.
And horizons.
That's right.
I'm a little disappointed that people in some parts of Canada don't even know what happens in Newfoundland, for example. Newfoundland is completely different. It's an eye-opener. People should go visit Newfoundland. Go there for a holiday. Amazing place. Just like they need to come and see the prairies. from Newfoundland or from Eastern Canada. I'm not talking of Toronto, or I'm talking of the Eastern Canada, not Central Canada, because we have a different way of lifestyle here. Our culture is different, but the commonality between those in Eastern Canada and those in the prairies, I feel, is the people are warm, affectionate, and welcoming, as opposed to the hustle and bustle of the Central Canada, the big cities.
You know, it's interesting you bring up Newfoundland. When Dustin, my second oldest brother, came back from traveling the world, he'd left for about a year back in his early 20s. When we came up with the idea of biking Canada, I remember asking him in the car ride to Edmonton if he could go to one place that he hadn't been yet, where would he go? And he said, you know what's funny? All the places I've ever been in around the world, he said I didn't know enough about Canada because people asked me about it all the time, and I hadn't been across it. I'd only been out at the time, I think I want to say like maybe Toronto, maybe, but like, you know, BC across to there. I'd played hockey in Ontario, so they'd come out a couple times, but never any further than that. You think Canada's a giant chunk of land, and you're absolutely right. When we went out there, all I ever heard growing up was how rude and ignorant and everything else, right, that you get said about Quebec. Because, I mean, the Quebec government doesn't help out the West very much. I think that's pretty easy to see. And there's some things going on that, rightfully so, Alberta in particular, are very upset about. But, you know, in Quebec, they were fantastic people. We never got treated rudely or anything. In Ontario, which I always got told about rudeness and just the demeanor of the people from that province. Oh, once again, the nicest person we ever met in the entire bike trip came in Ottawa, right? And so it's all about going out and experiencing the world. And so when you talk about that makes it's very interesting. It's something that your father wanted you to learn, and it's probably something that more kids should learn. And I find specifically today with social media and technology, the world should be smaller than everywhere. You should learn about everywhere. But instead, you learn about less and less, and just your people, and everybody else is, you know, screw them.
Yeah, if I may add to that, people in Eastern Canada are more content, and they have less than we do. And yet, their homes are immaculate, their lawns are well manicured, and I have a special closeness to Prince Edward Island. And you know, the top speed limit in Prince Edward Island is 90 kilometers an hour, and that's on Trans-Canada. Everywhere else it's between 80 and 70 kilometers, and life is really slow. It's like the 50s in the prairies, and the people are again welcoming. So the Maritimes or the Atlantic Canada is a different culture. Maybe because they're on the water, maybe PEI and Newfoundland are islands. You know, island people also have a different kind of culture. I love Eastern Canada, especially Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, and beautiful landscape.
Yeah, beautiful. 1,800 kilometers of coastline in Prince Edward Island. Just beautiful. Lovely beaches everywhere. Turn right or anywhere, or sometimes turn left, and there you are. Beautiful beach and nobody there. It's just a wonderful place.
Well, what did you think of landing? Did you fly into Edmonton?
Yes. No. I flew into Edmonton. That's right. I did, actually.
Well, let's back that up a second. How many flights at that time did it take to get to Edmonton? Okay. What was the travel like to get here?
Okay. It was from Madras to Bombay to Cairo, and they had to refuel. Cairo to Amsterdam to London, and London to Edmonton.
Holy Dinah. So how many days did that take?
Oh, well, I stopped. I took the opportunity to stop in Amsterdam. You know, I told you I like to travel. So I stopped in Amsterdam, spent 3 days there. I had 3 or 4 days. I had a friend there. and I stopped in London. I had some friends there as well. I was there for a week, and then I came to Edmonton.
You didn't go tour in Cairo?
Didn't tour in Cairo. No friends there at that time. I did go to Cairo eventually in 2001, but no friends in Cairo.
What did you think of Cairo?
Amazing place. Again, history. Again, the people do with less, and friendly people. Crowded, of course, but friendly people. Like you say, people are the same everywhere in the world. We need to get to know them. We need to get to know what makes them tick. And sometimes we generalize too much. Like you say, Quebec. Well, there's great people in Quebec. There's great people in Ontario. Unfortunately, sometimes the governments don't, shall I say, reflect what the people are like. I mean, look at the USA for right now. If you take the governments, both parties, you would think it's not a very good country, but the people make the country, and the people are, by and large, good people.
Yeah, well, I'm married to one of those people. My wife's from Minnesota. There's some pretty awesome Americans out there, but it's, I tell you, with this COVID-19 going on right now, Raf, you got pretty much every government does a daily update, right? So you got Trudeau does it, you got in Alberta, Saskatchewan, they're doing it, Kenny and Mo, and then Trump does his thing. And if you listen to, you listen to any Canadian one, it's like ask a question, he gives you an answer. Ask a question, gives an answer. And it's like 40 minutes maybe of kind of like, yep, here's what we're trying to do, blah, 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 right? Okay, thanks for everybody coming up. And then if you listen to a Trump one, it is like it's straight off a reality TV show.
Bizarre.
Yeah, like it's hard to believe. Well, damn, it's almost entertaining to just sit there and like listen to what is going on. Like I can't imagine if, let's use Alberta. Let's use Jason Kenney. If he started just bashing reporters and being like, should probably get you out of here and this is all fake news. And I'm not saying Trump's all bad. He's done some really good things, but you listen to him during the last month and some of it will just make you shake your head.
I have to agree with you. It is, it's sad the way he treats the reporters. Most of the reporters. Any controversial question, he seems to run the reporter down or run the network down. And I just saw today, he was giving hell to a CNN person, saying, that's why you're not the most trusted network. That's why nobody watches you. That's why your ratings are down. I mean, the guy's doing a job, and it's sad. It's sad. I mean, that's not the way you treat people.
Well, and when you raise a good point, it's not the way you treat people, because when your leader is treating people like that, that's going to filter down.
Absolutely.
Right? It starts at the top.
Absolutely. When your leader is treating people down, people take the cues from their leaders.
Yeah.
And it's okay to run people down. It's sad, but that's the reality. That's, again, is unfortunately becoming the new normal in the States. People starting to pick on people, whether it's skin color or whether it's your social economic status. I mean, people are being picked on in the States for no reason.
So let's get back to what you thought of Lloydminster. I mean, you've gone to New York, London, Cairo, and then you land in Edmonton.
See, Lloydminster was an adventure again. You see, I was out for adventure. So I come to Lloydminster, there's 8,500 people. Okay.
What year is this?
1975.
1975.
October of 1975. And a Greyhound bus pulls into the old Alberta hotel, and the parking lot is not paid.
You took a Greyhound bus into town?
Yeah. And it was just like the movies. The Greyhound bus pulls in, and dust all over the place, and the restaurant and the bar had screen doors, and those flimsy screen doors, because it was October sometime, or September, no, maybe it was August, first time I came here. Then I came back in October, and well, it was like cowboy movies, expecting somebody to come out with a 6-shooter and start shooting people. But anyway, then I started work in January, end of January, early February, I think it was. And I joined the clinic, the family. At that time, it was called the Medical and Dental Clinic. And again, I was only here for 1 year, so what the hell? Do what you can, and not in a hurry. I used to see 2 people a week because that's the way it was. There was no advertising, and it had to be word of mouth. My first week, I think I saw 3 or 4 people. And then the next week I saw 7 or 8, and the next week it went on, and that's how I built up my practice. And it was only going to be for a year, so I was not in a hurry to build up a big practice in the beginning.
So then, what is it about Lloyd that kept you?
Okay, a chap called Art Gellert, big man. He worked for one of the newspapers. I can't remember, it was the Booster or the Times. The Lloydminster Times he was working for. And he looked at me and he said, you would make a good Lions Club member. And I said, I had heard of the Lions Club. My father's friends were members of the Lions Club. I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So I joined the Lions Club. Then came Tom Countryman, who was the trainer for the Blazers, the Junior B Blazers, and he dropped into my office in July. But this time, word had spread that maybe I was interested in sports. And so he said, we're looking for a doctor for the hockey team. I said, I don't know anything about hockey. I've never seen a sheet of ice. I saw snow in Scotland when I was in Scotland, but I've never seen a sheet of ice. I've only seen pictures of women with skimpy clothes on skating rinks. And I said, that's the only thing, my closest thing to a skating rink. And he said, all you have to do is come and sit and be present during the games. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So come September, I walk into the dressing room and I meet Larry Leach, who was the coach at that time. And I'm sure many people know him. He played for the Boston Bruins for about 3 seasons. And he was tall and skinny with a little wisp of hair. And I told him, I'm your doctor here. And he said, oh, good. He said, where are you from? I said, India. He said, India is a big country. Where from? Oh, I said, usually people don't ask that question, I said, oh, maybe he knows something about India. So I went straight to the point and I said, South India. He said, where in South India? I said, Madras. Madras? His eyes lit up. And he told me the story right then and there. His father served in the army, Canadian Army, training British troops and American troops how to use amphibious tanks on the beaches of my home city, where I used to spend time on the beaches. 1943, far away from German eyes and Japanese eyes, they were planning the invasion, and they were using amphibious tanks in 1943. And we became fast friends. I went to his home, became a member of the family, met all his children, and then, of course, continued with hockey. I went to almost every hockey game, away and home.
Well, let's stop you right there. You can't throw a bomb of a story in there like that and not have a... How crazy is that?
It is absolutely crazy. Absolutely. Such a small world.
Did you know about that story before?
No, he told me.
Growing up in Madras, never heard the story?
Nobody ever. We heard of one German ship that came and shelled Madras in the First World War, and that was it, and never heard of anything. Nobody ever told me that they were doing these exercises right on the beaches that I used to go and swim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come to little town Lloydminster to hear that. Isn't that funny how the world works?
Imagine. That's how small the world is. And that's why my father said, world citizen. You never know who you'd meet, where you'd meet. And lasting friendship. And I can tell you that's why I stayed in Lloydminster. The Lions Club and hockey. And hockey, I realized, is not just a sport in smaller cities. It builds community. And I'm here. I'm a doctor here. I've been a doctor here. I would tell you, I would have gone. Because year in December, we were winning. That team was a winning team. It had 32 consecutive wins on a 40-game schedule, 2 ties, and 4 losses. How much does that make it? Yeah, 36, 32, and then there was 2 more games. But the team was amazing.
And this is Junior B?
Junior B. 32 consecutive wins.
Is that were you playing in Saskatchewan at that time?
We were playing, no. We played Vermilion, Wainwright, Barhead, Edson, Jasper. Where else did we play? Then we in the provincials. We went to Vulcan and won the Alberta Championship. So no, we played in Alberta. There was no Saskatchewan. It was all Alberta. Wainwright, yeah, Wagerville, Vermilion.
What on earth did you think of the game of hockey when you first set eyes on it?
Oh, fascinating game. It was a wonderful, fast game. It was fascinating. It was different than any sport I'd ever been involved in. And I was just totally taken up by the players, by the coach, by the trainer, Larry Bright. I mean, it was just like family. I was a part of their family.
What did you think of your first fight when you saw it back then?
That was interesting because in field hockey, if you fought, you were kicked out for a long time. But in hockey, it seemed like it was okay. It was part of the game. And I asked Larry, how come this is allowed? And he said, he says, that is the game. It is allowed, and it's a game of intimidation, and you have to protect your players. You have to protect your weaker player. If somebody picks on your player or picks on your goalie, the guy deserves a good thrashing, so they won't do it again. And that's the way it is. And Larry was a fighter when he played hockey. He showed me his face. He had 75 stitches on his face, right across his nose, on one below his left eye and onto his right eye, and over his nose. So it was fascinating. Great. It is a great game.
Well, you're surrounded. You can tell I enjoy the game of hockey as well.
Yeah, yes.
When you talked to your family and said, I think I found the spot, do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
What was said in that conversation? How did your parents react to it?
You can't stay there. You have to go and specialize. You can't be a GP. That's what my father said. Yeah, no. You have to specialize. Your sister's a specialist. Your friends are specialists. I said, I like it here. It took 3 years for my father to come here to Lloydminster and see the city, meet some of my friends, and then say, okay, money is not everything. Because, specialists earn more money. Money is not everything. Looks like you're happy here, and I'm happy for you. And that was the end of the pressure. No more pressure.
You're wearing a Lloydminster Lancers jacket. When? Well, actually, I know when. What year does that happen?
1982.
82, that's right. So, for 6 years then?
Yep.
6 years?
77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. Yeah, six years, yeah.
6 years you do the Junior B full-time?
No. We stepped out of Junior B 1 year because Saddle Lake and some other teams were included in the league. And Saddle Lake, I remember there was a major fight in the stands, and it was like goon hockey when we played against them. So that year we decided as a board to step out of Junior B and take a break. Because the coach was fighting, the trainer was fighting, the players were in the stands, both sides. It was just ridiculous. It was goon hockey. And they didn't have plexiglass in those days. So you could climb over the stands. Anybody could go over the stands, and the stands could go over onto the ice too. So
did you see that a couple times?
Yes.
Fans going on the ice?
Couple of times, yes. Leaning right over and hitting a guy as he skated across. So there was not very often, but
So I never would have thought about it, but I guess it would make sense. When they put glass in the rink, everybody was pretty happy about that.
Yes, it was happy. It protected everybody. Because there used to be guys leaning over and deliberately sticking an arm out as a player went by. I won't mention the town or where, but I've seen it happen. So anyway, where were we? We were talking about the year that we took a break. And that year, Elmer Franks came to me and said, we're looking for a director of the Northeast Alberta Midget Hockey League. And we want you to be the director. Since you're doing nothing. Because I was... And so that year I was director of the Northeast Alberta Midget Hockey League. Then the following year, the board decided to go for a junior A team, and we went to PA, and we talked to Terry, what was Terry's last name? I don't remember now. But anyway, Terry Simpson. And we negotiated, and then we went to Humboldt and waited for 3 hours because that's where the league meeting was, and they didn't want us because we were so far west. They didn't want us. Battleford had a team, and I think because Battleford was there, they said, okay, it's only another hour and a half drive. We can make a swing, and that's how we got accepted. We were waiting on pins and needles. There was 5 of us who went to PA and then went to Humboldt.
Why did you go to PA first?
Because PA was going into Major Junior, and they were wanting to sell the team and let the franchise go.
Do you remember how much did you have to pay for the franchise then?
I don't think so. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember the details. They wanted us to buy their bus, I know, and it was a piece of crap. So we didn't buy the bus. I can't remember if we had to pay or not. I don't remember that.
Do you remember
we negotiated, but they had to let the franchise go somehow. Maybe we did pay something. I don't remember.
Do you remember who the 4 guys who were with you were?
Yes, very well. Lloyd Tendick, Joe Bellier. He worked for the rapeseed plant. God, I'm having a blackout now. Myself, Glenn Wood, and Norris Hartwell. There it is, the 5 of us. So, yeah, we went there. There was Larry Leach was on the board. He didn't go with us. There was quite a few others on the board, but the 5 of us were chosen to go and negotiate and bring the team back. Bring the team.
Pretty unbelievable that a guy from India with no background in hockey had only seen his first sheet of ice 6 years prior, goes from managing a midget hockey league to being on the board that gets Lloyd its first junior team.
Amazing, isn't it? Even I find it hard to believe after all these years. Well, I also managed Junior B when Stu Weishauer, the regular manager, could not go on road trips. I used to be the manager on road trips. I used to I had to keep guys like Roger Roberge and Murray Batty in line, Many a time I had to walk into their rooms and take bottles away from them because those guys were 18, 19-year-old. They could go and pick up bottles. And it was not that we didn't allow drinking, but game night, Of course not. So Stu and I used to go make sure curfew was on, and look under the bed and find some lemon gin sometimes, some beer. It was fun. It was all fun. It was all fun.
Was that a shock to you, a guy who'd gone through university, swimming, then rowing, having a strict curfew at 9, to see athletes do that?
It was a little bit, because, when you rowed or when you swam, alcohol and smoking was just in the off season, if you had to do it, because it was well known that alcohol and smoking reduced your fitness. Not just one drink, but I'm talking of, when you're rowing and you tie one on a weekend, you lose fitness. So those were no-nos. So it was a little different culture here. But the way it was, that's the way it was. And I mean, some people smoked in dressing rooms, people smoked in my office as a doctor. In those days, we had ashtrays.
In the doctor's office?
In the doctor's office, ashtrays. In Big Mike Red Iron, some people may remember him, 6'6", indigenous person, Aboriginal person, used to come and empty ashtrays at 5 o'clock and make damn sure that nobody smoked and wrecked his clean ashtrays. He'll sit there till office closure, 5:30, and he'll sit in the waiting room, making sure nobody smoked after 5, because he cleaned the ashtrays, and it's done.
That seems like that is something, I remember going to restaurants. I remember going to the bars as an 18, 19-year-old here in town and how smoky it was. I think that's something we all remember. But I can't remember that. Yeah. And it's almost a lifetime ago that you could smoke. Well, I mean, I work for Baker Hughes. And Baker Hughes, there's no smoking on our premises anymore. Yeah. So you can't smoke within the structure. You can't smoke within, right? You got to be out pretty much in the city street in order to have a smoke.
Our manager smoked in our office. There's ashtrays everywhere.
They smoke on the bus?
No. Larry didn't allow smoking on the bus. No smoking, no drinking on the bus. And a nice little story. We bought some beer. Well, put it this way. I bought some beer to celebrate after we won the game in Edson, because I knew we were going to win. Unfortunately, we lost. On the way back, Larry and I used to sit in the front, and sometimes our spouses came with us, just like God Redden. He took over from Larry, and we used to sit in the front, and Pat accompanied us on some road trips. But anyway, this particular time, Larry heard the tinkling of glass, and he walked to the back, and there they were, Roger Roberge and Murray Batty and a few others opened the beer and going at it. And there was hell to pay for. But it was okay. They took it in their stride. And of all people, Roger accuses me of teaching him how to drink alcohol when he was alive. Now he's no more now, but anyway, we had a great relationship with all those guys, all of them. Those days were really good. We were all together. Like I said earlier, we were a family. I still remember how close we are, and today we're still close. With the Gervais brothers, with Owen Noble, lots of people I can mention, but we were close. Scott Kennedy, we have names for all of them, nicknames for all of them. So it was fun.
Did you ever learn to skate?
I barely did, but I was terrified. I had skates, and I went on. I've been on. I was on skates for about maybe 7 or 8 times, attempts. I would say attempts. And did I skate? Yeah, I skated 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet. Never skated backwards, but that's about it. That's the best I could do.
An athlete like yourself, who's played and done different things, competitive, you say you're adventurous, you didn't look at ice and go, you know what, I can master this?
That's one of my biggest regrets, that I didn't learn to skate. I don't know what happened. I don't know if work came in the way, because I was with these guys all the time.
Yeah.
I was at practices too, because as you know, I was single, footloose, fancy free. I was at practices, I was on road trips. I mean, for some reason, I don't think they grabbed me, because they were so intense on practicing that they didn't grab me on the ice and said, come on, Doc, let's go for a skate. So I dropped the ball. And that was one of my biggest regrets to this day, because I'd still be playing hockey right now.
Let's talk about the Lancers. Okay, you mentioned going to PA, then going to Humboldt, and sitting there. What was the first season of having junior A hockey in Lloyd like?
Oh, it was exhilarating, because it was the crowds were there. Because we had no hockey no junior B hockey here for a whole year, so they were hungry, and we had 1,600, 1,700 people in the early days filling the ring. But compared to the junior B team, when we had 2,500 in the playoffs against Vermilion, the rafters, the police, the fire chief had to come and shut the doors. It wasn't that big, but it was a regular season. We had 1,600 people for games, and there was less on television too. Not like today. There's too much on television to keep people home.
Keep people home, absolutely.
Keep people home.
And too many options, right? You can pretty much watch any game you want to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So there was less television, there was less cable, less channels in those days. So people came out and celebrated and had fun and enjoyed themselves. But I think actually people are missing out when they don't go to hockey games, because I think we still have a good product. Hockey is really a great game. It's unfortunate that they have other options at home.
You mentioned when Lloyd played Vermilion, and could you go the amount of fans in there? Could we just dive into that for 2 seconds?
Yeah. 7th game of the playoffs.
Junior B?
Junior B.
Okay. Finals?
Lloyd won 3 straight. Okay, in the playoffs.
Okay.
So it was just a formality going to Vermilion. We lost. We had a home ice advantage. Vermilion came to Lloyd. 3-1 series. Lost. We went to Vermilion.
Must have been a packed barn in Vermilion.
Yes, packed barn. Noisy. Good hockey town. We went to Vermilion. Lost 3 straight. So series tied 3-3. Final game, Lloydminster. 7th game.
Now, is this first round of playoffs? Is this league finals?
Finals.
League finals.
League finals.
Up 3-0, lose 3 straight, Game 7 at the Civic Center.
Yes.
Ooh, you're setting it nicely here. I like this. Okay.
And I'm not exaggerating. People were sitting on those rafters at the old Civic Center, standing on somebody's shoulders and sitting there. And you only hear stories like that. Plugged to the rafters, people are actually sitting on the rafters because there was no place to be had. That place was built for 2,250 people, and then there was over 2,500 people. And I came late, but just before the game, of course, and the fireman won't let me in. I had a friend with me, and I said, look, I'm the physician for the team, and this is my assistant, and snuck in. And, of course, because I was physician, I would have got in anyway, and I snuck the friend in. It was that tight. Everything was closed because it was a fire hazard, because people were already in. And it was a whale of a game. And it was great. And there was the rivalry between Roger and big Mike McNabb from Vermilion, and it was fantastic, and that was good. And then we went to the that was the northern finals.
So
then
you
went to the southern finals.
So you win that, obviously.
Oh yeah, we won.
And then the building went nuts?
Nuts, absolute nuts. It was like Stanley Cup in Lloydminster, because it was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, and back then, Junior B would have been the ticket.
It was the ticket. It was the only show and only game in town. No, we had the Border Kings too, but it wasn't that much for the Border Kings as it was for Junior B.
Mm-hmm. Did you go on to win then the main?
We won the Alberta Championships. Then we went to Manitoba for the Western Canadian Championships, and I think it was in Winkler, if I'm not mistaken, and we lost there.
What a ride!
Yeah, what a ride! Yeah,
I love hearing the old stories of how full an arena can get, because you just don't see it. Shouldn't say you don't see it anymore. But in Lloyd, you don't see it a whole lot.
Yeah.
I had Trevor Redden, who did the play-by-play for the Bobcats there the year of the Royal Bank Cup. Now he's in PA, and he showed me pictures of PA versus Saskatoon. Was it PA Saskatoon? Now I'm forgetting.
Or Brandon.
Or the finals too.
Yeah.
It might have been the finals against Vancouver, but people standing on the milk crates.
Yeah.
And he said he was an old wives' tale, right? You talk about the rafters and packed to the rafters. Yeah. Oh, old wives' tale. Oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah. And then he said he walked into that game and saw people running to their seats an hour before, and people who didn't get there at an hour before couldn't get seats, so they're standing on milk crates. And there ain't like 2 milk crates. We're talking like as far as the eye can see milk crates, just so they can see over the next person.
The next time I saw our ring packed was the Allen Cup in Lloydminster, when Fleury was here. And what's the chap from Montreal who used to play for Montreal? They both begins with O. Anyway, he's of indigenous origin.
Olchak? No.
No.
Oh, crap.
I know him because I looked after him when he was stabbed with a knife when somebody was stealing his car in Montreal. Gino Ojek. Gino Ojek.
Yes.
And that was the next time.
What? How? You were in Montreal? What?
Well, Gino Ojek, there's so many stories with hockey. See why I love the game. He was in a bar in Montreal, and somebody was stealing his car, and he went to attack the guy, but the guy turned around and put a knife into him.
Okay.
So then he had to go to hospital, and then they explored the wound, and then they stitched him up, and he came to Lloydminster. Actually, before the game, that was not the first time. The first time was when with Redden.
Wade?
There you go.
Wade
Redden
okay.
had a hockey school here.
Okay,
Indigenous hockey school. And Gino Ojek was there at the school, and that's when I first met him. And he had to have his stitches removed.
From this knife wound?
From this knife wound. And so he came to see me, and I removed the stitches, and that's when we first met. And then we, of course, renewed our acquaintance at the Allen Cup. But anyway, the Allen Cup was crowd. We are talking of crowds in the rink. That was electrifying.
Well, and like I was saying about the crowds, I mean, the NHL, you still get big crowds, but to think back in the day for a junior B team, you put it to the rafters, or for senior hockey, right?
Allen Cup, yep.
Yeah.
It was good. And Allen Cup hockey was fantastic. Good. Great hockey.
How many years were you on the board for the junior A team in town?
For probably 3 to 4 years.
Why did you end up stepping away then?
Because I had kids and they started playing hockey. And I couldn't attend meetings, and I was busy in the hospital. I was doing my rounds. I was delivering babies. I was quite busy and I ended up with 3 kids playing hockey. So Sohail, my older son, the first year was his home team was Polar Kings in
Wainwright?
in Paradise Valley. They were called
Oh,
Paradise
the-
Valley
yeah,
Polar
okay,
King before they moved to Wainwright. Before they moved to, so that was his home rink. So
Why was he playing at a PV?
he got cut here. It was the last cut, so the Polar Kings wanted him. So he was midget, double A, and so rather than playing midget A,
He went to PV.
PV. They asked for him. Sam Bensmiller, and I can't remember the coach's name. His face is so long ago, but it'll come. I got what do you call it? Old timers.
I think you're doing pretty dang good myself. You're spitting out names left, right, and center.
Yeah. So anyway, they wanted him, and I asked them, is he just going to warm the bench, or is he actually going to play? And Sam and the coach assured me that no, he will get a regular shift like everybody else, except when the game is tied and we have a minute or 2 left, and then we'll short shift. So I said, fine, then he can come here and play. And so he did. And the next day he played for Lloyd. They wanted him back here. So I couldn't be on the board of the Lancers and also look after the kids.
Did you still do any of the? Were you still the team doctor at that point?
Yes, I was still the team doctor.
How long were you the team doctor for? How many years? Or do you know?
41 years unbroken. Oh no, 1 year with that break of 1 year when I was when there was no hockey.
So 41 years minus a year.
Minus a year.
Holy Dinah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was fun. It was fun. Enjoyed it, every minute of it.
Any memories stick out to you? Because I mean, you've seen a ton of players, a ton of coaches, a ton of just management, you name it, go through.
Yeah, somebody who should have made NHL when it was junior A was Chris Barnes from Bonneville, 6 foot 2.5 forward, 215 pounds, lean. He skated so slow, looked like it, but he was overtaking everybody. That was in junior A. In junior B, it was Rolly Gervais. He got called up twice. 1 year he lasted 1 week. The next year into Calgary for Tier 1. Major Junior, Roland Gervais.
So Calgary, do you remember the team?
Can't remember which team it was. The second year, he was 17 years old now, and the second year he lasted 1 month, and he wanted to come back to Lloyd. He was homesick, and he had the potential for going all the way in the NHL because he was such an all-rounded player. He could change the pace of the game. He was looking around. He was a great forward, and he was just the right size, and it was wonderful. Great hockey player. And Chris Barnes was another one who should have made it. Then, of course, Brent Dallin. I thought he would have made it, but he came back and played, and he was one of the anchors for our junior A team. The first person we got and built the team around Brent Dallin. And that was another success story. That first year was fantastic. So there was lots of people who could have gone places, and again, they didn't get the right opportunity. There was one fellow called Larry Clark, who again, was a great hockey player. He played with Tiger Williams in Weyburn, and I've never seen anybody throw a hip check like him. He would send people flying right over the plexiglass. No plexiglass, over the boards with a hip check. He'll just wait for them, hang on to the puck. He'll tell them to come to him, and he'll just with a swing of his hip, gone. Literally flying over into the stands. So
played hockey with Larry Clark's son.
Pardon me?
I played hockey with Larry Clark's son.
Yeah. Larry Clark's a great hockey player, but he was small then. But 2 years later, he was big. He grew. Well, by the time he was 19, he was a big man. But again, opportunity slipped by. He was great.
Why the Lancers? Why not the Blazers? Because the Junior B team was the Blazers, correct?
Yeah. After that fight in the stands, there was a lot of public opinion against the Blazers. And for some reason, we thought we'll start afresh. Because everybody was called the Blazers in Lloydminster. Junior, everybody. So we put out a competition to pick a new name. And so that's how we became the Lancers. Then after a few years, we went back to Blazers. And then eventually we became the Bobcats.
One So where did the name Lancers come from?
I think the high school had a Lancers team. And one person, they put a number of names, and the board decided to choose Lancers. It was a catchy name, and that's how they chose the Lancers.
Well, you're wearing a jacket that I suspect there are only a few left.
Very few left, correct. I couldn't find my Blazer jacket with the old leather sleeves and the black leather and the red. I couldn't find it. I was going to wear that one. But anyway, this was the next best thing. This is the first year of the 1982, so it still fits me.
Being in Lloyd for now, what is that, 30, 40, 45 years?
Yeah, 43 years.
43 years?
43 years, 44 years. 44 years.
What has been one of the big changes to come to Lloyd that you got to witness?
One of the biggest changes, of course, to have so many paved streets that we didn't have when I first came. The multiplex is a nice facility. I regret that it didn't become the main arena, and they did some retrofitting to the old Centennial Civic Center to make it functional for the younger people. There was a move, but somehow the people at that time decided this is the way it's going to be. That's a fantastic facility. And all the stores that have come up, the box stores, there's no need for anyone to go to Edmonton to shop anymore. We have everything in Lloydminster. Whatever we need. The Synergy Credit Union building is a really classy building. It really does Lloydminster proud, I think, that building. And it's in a good location.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a beautiful building.
Yeah. And
I was going to say, speaking of the Civic Center, it sounds like its days are numbered now.
Well, you don't know what can happen. The Archie Millers was numbered. The days were numbered. When we were on the board of the Blazers, we raised $25,000 that first year to retrofit the Archie Miller. And they told us it's going to be torn down. So we're not going to waste money on it. $25,000 in 1977. And it's still going. So I don't know. It does need a major refitting, but I don't know if it'll cost us, I think, $30 million or at least $20 million to build another arena. And with times are tough, I don't think we're going to see one myself in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
You raise a good point with Archie Miller, because the Archie Miller now is you talk to rec hockey players, because it doesn't have the stands for a junior team or anything, but the ice, the dressing rooms now, the glass, everything is bar none. It's beautiful.
If the Archie Miller can be retrofitted, and I remember going with Sohail and the kids, the Archie Miller, I carried my own heater. Space heater, and everybody came around us. I was the most popular parent on the ice because I had the space heater and on a little propane tank. And so if that can be retrofitted and still being used, now we're talking 45 years later,
Yeah.
when it was condemned and supposed to be torn down, the Civic Center is like new. No, it's yeah, there's lots of things. That was one thing that I was surprised that the Archie Miller is still going strong.
Oh, well, and better than ever, right?
Yeah.
But you talk about how cold that rink was. You raise a good point, because there was only one other rink that held a candle to how cold that rink was, in my mind. Because as a kid, you went skating in the Archie, and everything froze. Like your hands, you couldn't feel them. Your feet, you couldn't feel them. And as a hockey guy, that's almost unheard of, because you're moving your body all the time. Usually your feet can get cold, but the rest of your body doesn't get that cold. I remember losing feeling in my hands in the Archie Miller. But the home on rink growing up as a kid, when it was minus 40 outside, it was minus 50 inside.
Yeah.
I don't know what the tin did, but it like magnified it.
Yes. Yeah. The Archie, you could see the nails, frost on the nails, because there was no insulation outside or inside. You could see the frost on every nail. Yeah. So going back to Civic Center, I think it's got some life left, but it could definitely use another. If we get some winning hockey here, we will need more seats, without a doubt. At least another 200, 300 more seats.
Were you on the board who brought, or were you a part of the movement that brought the rowing club to Lloyd?
I started the rowing club in Lloyd.
Yes, you started. Okay.
I started the rowing club in Lloyd, and we did very well for about 10 years. We produced a national champion in the singles, juniors, and a silver medal. We also had a young lady who went on to become the captain of the Queen's University rowing team, the 8. And then I was working hard to keep it going, but I had some friends who helped, Barry Harpstead, Bart King, some of the names who helped along, Herb Swift. And then Herb left town. Barry Harpstead went on to become a chiropractor. He currently practices in Sherbrooke. And I was left by myself, so I had to take a break. Then Morgan Mann showed up one fine day and said, "Doc, we should do something about the rowing club," because Morgan had built his house right next to the rowing club. And I said, "Morgan, if you'll help me, let's get it going again."
So when was the first stint?
The club was, I bought the boats in 1978.
Oh, so pretty much right as you get here.
Yeah. Once I decided I'm not leaving Lloydminster, I decided and bought boats from the Regina Rowing Club. And the first 3 years or 2 years we were in Sandy Beach. And then I found this stretch. It used to be called Baby's Lake. The real name, I think, is Killarney Lake. And I found that nice straight stretch of water with no boats and no power boats. And so I said, that's where we'll go. And that's where we moved, and we stored our boats at Ralph DeRosier's farm. We hung them up with pulleys in his barn, his hay barn, and we used to take him down. And Mark McCall brought his John Deere tractor and cut a path from the barn to the water, and we were on the west side of the lake. Then few years later, we built a dock and went to the east side of the lake. And then after that, we moved and built our own building further north, where Morgan Mann lives right now. And that's where we are.
So when you started the club, you mentioned like winning high competitions.
Yes.
How many people were in the rowing club?
Oh, we had maybe many of the RCMP members were members of the rowing club. There must have been at least 15 to 20 people. We only had one boat, so we had to take shifts. So people had to book a boat and take the first shift and the second shift. So the first shift was at 5 and the second shift was at 7.
How many in a boat?
There was a 4, and then there was a 2-man and a single. So 7 people could row at one time if they went out on the water at the same time, yes.
I know about as much about rowing as I know about cricket. So, when it comes to rowing, in your mind, is it easier to row in a 1, a 4? What's the...
The single, the 1-man single,
Yeah.
is a very hard boat to row in, because at its widest is where your hip sits. It's about 12 inches wide,
Okay.
and it narrows to a point on both ends.
Right.
And it's like walking a tightrope. And the 2 oars you have are the ones that you use to balance the boat along with your body and your legs, but mostly the oars. So you have to. It's very tricky. So the best boat to start off is a 4, and this is where there's some debate whether the 4-man boat, whether it's with 2 oars each when you call it a quad, or straight 4 when each person has
One oar.
one oar. That's easy, but similarly a double where each person has 2 oars each also is easier. But when you have 4 people, it's a heavier boat, and it's less tippy, and so my preference would be, if I want to teach somebody, to go in the quad or in the straight 4.
When you were, I didn't ask this back, when you were in India and competing, what did you compete in? Were you in a 4?
I was in a straight 4 and a single. I competed in a single.
And what were you winning at?
I won both top championships, as in the 4 and in the single.
What do you mean top championships? What's the top championship?
The one within all the clubs, which is called the Amateur Rowing Association of the East. That was the name of the regatta. Amateur Rowing Association of the East.
And you won that in the singles?
I won the singles and the 4. 2 years in a row I won in the 4. In the first year I was a rookie, more or less, and I lost in the semifinals. The next year I won.
So is that for all of India then?
All of India, correct.
So you're the national champion of India in rowing.
Yes, I was.
How the hell did we miss that, Doc, going an hour ago? You just not going to bring that up?
Well, wasn't that important. It wasn't so long ago. I was 23 years old. It's a long time ago.
So you had never rowed before. You swam.
Yes.
Walk in, stumble in.
They
say, hey.
At age 20.
Hey, maybe you should try rowing. You go, sure, I don't know if I can. My parents don't know if they're going to let me. And how many years later you're a national champ?
In the 4, 2 years later, and in the single, 3 years later. 72 and 73.
Holy Dinah. That's pretty cool.
It is cool, but I took up rowing quite seriously. I used to spend 6 days a week in the rowing club. And the 1 year in 1971, I could not compete because of my exams, and my coach tried to change the regatta, the national regatta. He tried to change it. By 1 week after I'd finished my exams, I could row, and they said no. And so that year we had a fantastic team, and we would have won it that year, 70, I rowed 70 and 71. This is 71 I'm talking about. So actually 3 years going back, I won the 3rd year and the 4th year, because 70, 71, 72, 73. So anyway, make a long story short, they had to change the team, and they lost in the finals. Who knows? They may have still lost if I was there, but my coach said really missed me. So it was good times. Yeah, we broke all records. That crew when we were together.
What do you broke all records? So are you still in the record? Probably not. Probably not in the record books.
Um,
That long
I'm
ago,
not.
you'd think.
I'm not sure if anybody has done it at the club level then. Since then, of course, politics has got involved in rowing in India. They became part of a bigger movement. Rowing Federation became part of the Olympic movement, and now they're all fighting with each other.
So you're telling me you could still hold a record over there for rowing?
The four, yes, in the four, with three others, and a coxswain, one who steers the boat.
Wow, isn't that just dandy? I can't believe we almost missed that. I'm glad we somehow stumbled our way back onto that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's something. I was lucky. That's all. I was lucky, and I think I worked hard. Also,
It sounds like a little bit of luck, sure, but I would say there had to have been hard work that
yeah,
goes into that.
I think I did work hard. I actually did.
With the rowing club here in Lloyd, is it tied? Is there no school kids? Like, I don't remember, and the reason I ask this is growing up in school, I don't remember. Hey, you can go be a part of the rowing club ever being an option.
This year and last year, we've got some school kids. Thanks to Michelle Lopez, the president of the rowing club, Morgan Mann, also we have some school kids, and this summer, hopefully, physical distancing would be relaxed because we sit quite close to each other in the boat. I think we will have a good schoolboy and schoolgirl season.
How many people are in the club right now?
Oh, we're back to active people, maybe 10 to 12, but membership maybe 15 to 20.
And what does it cost to get in the rowing club?
For adults, it's $200 a year. And for students, I can't remember what the membership is for students, but it's much less.
And does that get you access to the boats whenever you want to go use them? Or is it once a night or once a week?
No. If you are an accomplished oarsman, you can go use it anytime, but we don't recommend going alone because in case you tip the boat, let's say,
yeah,
we are required to have a safety boat. And life jackets are cumbersome, but there are the new life jackets which you could row with. So they might relax the rules, but according to the provincial and national rowing associations, you have to have a rescue boat. So when I rowed, I went alone sometimes, nobody on the water. But I was confident in a single. It was okay. And I knew how to swim, so it wasn't bad. But even if you know how to swim, you could get hit on the head when the boat tips over accidentally. So it's not safe, I think.
Rowing. That's interesting. And is there like a stereotypical person you look for? I know you were saying in India they were looking for a tall, over a certain weight. Is that still... It's
nice to be tall because you have a longer reach, but not necessarily. You can be strong, but now they also have different classes. They have lightweights and heavyweights. They never had that before. So the heavyweights are all those big guys who are 6 foot plus, and the lightweights are anywhere from 5'9" to 6. So they've split it. So there's lightweights and heavyweights. Heavyweight guys some of them are 6'6", 6'7", and they need special boats and special rigging, as you call it, to rig the outriggers so it suits their style and their size.
you'd written down, and then I written down that the second year you were in Lloyd, you started to connect with people with disabilities. Did I write that down?
That is correct.
What?
I again was asked to sit on the board as a physician for what is now called the B. Fisher Center.
Okay.
So I was on the board of the B. Fisher Center for 13 years. It gave, working with people with disabilities gave me an anchor, a value that all people are equal and needed to be treated fairly and included in everyday life, regardless of their disability, whether it was physical or intellectual. And people in the B. Fisher Center had intellectual disabilities. And it really taught me something and grounded me in being basically what's kids know in the playground, what's not fair and what's fair. Children know that among themselves, what is fair and what is not fair. And as adults, we start dividing ourselves into groups. And so I really learned a lot from people with disabilities.
How about human rights activism?
That started with my work with people with disabilities, and I realized that human rights are indivisible. What's good for you is also good for somebody else, regardless of color, age, gender, marital status, any of those reasons. And so it started in 1983 when I was appointed to a commission in Peter Lougheed's government, and Bud Miller was the one who got me on it, to after a teacher, Keekstra, in Eckville was denying the Holocaust and said it never happened, and taught his students that. And so Peter Lougheed decided that this is not right, that students should be taught that there was no such thing called a genocide of people by the Germans. By the Nazis, I shouldn't say Germans, by the Nazis, because they are different. They are a different breed of people, the Nazis. And so that led me to Tolerance and Understanding, is what the name of the commission was called. And we traveled all over Alberta. Actually, we used the cabinet plane, and there was 12 of us. We went the length and breadth of Alberta. We drove where the plane couldn't land or where it could land. We sometimes drove an hour and a half, 2 hours. And after that was done, I thought it was done, I got a call to sit on the Human Rights Commission from a friend. He said, if you sit on it, I will sit on it. And so I got on the Human Rights Commission. But all my fairness and my growing up and my values, I have to say, started with working with people in the B. Fisher Center. That's kind of grounded me in the game of fairness and equity.
It's probably something a lot of people should just volunteer and help out with it's not like a full-time thing, but just to open some eyes.
Well, that's what community is, isn't it? That's how this country was built. This country was built not by paid people, by volunteers. People pitched in. You pitched in for your neighbors. I mean, if you haven't finished your harvest, your neighbor comes and helps you without even sometimes being asked. Say, hey, I've finished my harvest. That's how the West was built, Canada was built. And volunteerism, I think you get more out of giving. You hear that cliche all the time. People say, oh, you get more out of giving. But it's true. It's very true. You get more out of giving of yourself. And actually, I would say I got more out of it than whatever I did in life. I got more out of it.
And there's something to be said about volunteering. I was talking with Les and Marilyn Mitchell. So my brother's
In-laws.
Thank you. And they're around your age, and they still volunteer at like everything in Kitsiotti. And I'm young. I didn't really enjoy volunteering, but you kind of wonder if when you hit a certain age or your kids get so busy, if you ever just stop volunteering and let the younger people do it or whatever. And I sat down and recorded them for their family, and I asked them that question, and they had a lovely answer, and I probably won't do it justice, but it was something along the lines of they enjoyed volunteering, they enjoyed seeing their community prosper, but they really enjoyed the people they met volunteering, and so they looked at it, instead of going out to the bar for a night with their friends, they had a way to go out with their friends and help make the community better. And so they had a tight-knit group that all volunteered together, and I thought it was, that's brilliant, because in Hillmon, where I do 92% of my volunteering right now, I got a group of people I work with that are just fantastic, and it doesn't make it feel like work. And if you can ever find that, you can see where you can do that for the next 50 years, and it never, ever becomes work.
I couldn't agree more. That's exactly been the story of my life. I will never stop volunteering. Maybe a little less as we get older, because we're getting older and don't have the energy or things like that. But or you like to travel. But I couldn't agree more with Lieutenant Merrill Mitchell. Definitely, 100%.
Well, you haven't given me two names. He said that you knew, and I don't know if this meant just had met him or if you knew them personally, but Brian Mulrooney was one of them. Did you actually know him, or did you just meet? Well,
I would say
the 18th Prime Minister of Canada?
I would say we knew each other because we met about 5 times in different venues. As a matter of fact, I gave my jacket to his wife in Vermilion when he was running for Prime Minister. There was a rally in Vermilion and it was cold, and she was shivering there. And this was, I think, in June. So I took out my jacket and gave it to her. And years later, he remembered that. He remembered, said, "You're the guy who gave my wife a jacket in Vermilion." I said, "That's right, that's true." And then we met a few more times. So I won't say we're friends, but if he sees me, he might remember.
The Prime Minister had a rally in Vermilion?
Yes. Before he became Prime Minister. For this riding.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Before he became Prime Minister.
I was thinking Prime Minister in Vermilion. That'd be a sight.
Yeah. Well, no, before he became Prime Minister. The rally was in Vermilion. Yeah. The Conservative Party got together there.
And then the other name he mentioned was Don Mazinkowski.
No, Don and I are friends. We still are friends. We still keep in touch. I got involved, again, politics, volunteering. Yeah. Politics brings you closer to people, gives you lifelong friends. Just like I met Bud Miller, we became very good friends. I delivered the eulogy in Bud Miller's funeral. So Don Mazinkowski and I are still friends. I still call him every 2 months or sometimes a month, and we keep in touch.
Well,
and he would call me a friend too, I'm sure.
We've been here for an hour and 45 minutes now, so I'm going to go into the Crude Master Final 5, the last 5 questions. We can go as long or as short as we want, but they're just 5 kind of questions directed to end off this. This has been really interesting.
I hope it's not boring for the people who are
listening.
Oh,
no. If I'm sitting here and I'm looking at all, I'm going, holy crap, an hour and 45 minutes is blown by? Believe me, that's saying something. It's been really fascinating, to be completely honest. Now, I got to think about this, but I want to say the first guest I've had on who was born and raised in a different country that isn't North America. So somebody who's come from, you just come from a different life, essentially. So the first question is, if you could sit down with one person, present or past, who would you want to sit down and have what's your poison that you have? Is it coffee or is it something a little stiffer?
Well, coffee.
Okay, well, there you go. If you could have one person to sit down across the table like this to have a coffee with, who would you pick?
Very hard question. But I would probably pick Don Mazinkowski because there's so much to learn from him, so much he has done in his life. I would.
And for the people who don't know who Don Mazinkowski is, he was a cabinet minister under Brian Mulroney.
He was a deputy prime minister of Canada, and he was called the Minister of Everything.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, he was the most respected politician in Ottawa, and that came from a policeman who used to work here and who moved to Ottawa. And he said he's the most respected politician in Ottawa. So we should be proud of Don Mazinkowski. He's an icon.
And where is he from?
Vegreville.
Vegreville.
Actually, Viking, and then Vegreville.
If you could take a time machine and go anywhere, anytime, to see any event, where would you go? That might be tougher than the one I just asked.
I would like to go to the Montreal Olympics, 76. Because it's in Canada. And I think while rowing did well, even in 1952, in the Helsinki Olympics, I think we did very well in the 76 Olympics. So that would be a place to be.
Did any of your rowing club ever go on to be in the Olympics?
No.
No.
Politics came in the way.
Because when you were rowing in India, you would have never had a chance at the Olympics then, correct?
No, but when I came in first time in 74, before I went to England, I was wandering in Vancouver, having won the national championship, looking for where the Canadian team was training. And I did not know where they were, because I was going to say, I don't want to work. I don't have to work. I was already a doctor. I want to row. And but nobody directed me to where they were training in 1974. So I would have loved to. I think I would have had a good chance of making the team. 5'11.5", and I was 195 pounds, good size. I would have made it. To at least had a good chance.
You've traveled a lot of countries. How many countries have you been to in the world, give or take?
Oh, God. Well, let's throw out about at least 20 countries. At least.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's one country you haven't been to that you would like to go to?
Turkey.
Ooh, Turkey. Yeah.
Because crossroads of Europe.
Yeah. Lots and lots and lots of history.
History. I like history. Turkey is on my bucket list, but seeing the world the way it is and how unsettled places are, I wouldn't want to go on my own. I probably would like to go with somebody who is from Turkey, who can steer me off the dangerous spots.
What part of history are you most fascinated by?
The older history and the history of how countries evolved and the old civilizations, how they lived. So, for example, I've been to Italy, been to Rome. I went to Cairo, Egyptian civilization.
Yeah.
So, that kind of stuff. The British, like the museums, again, good history there.
I presume you read books, and I'm going to assume a lot of books. What have been, and I won't narrow it down to one because I know that'll be pretty tough on you, but if there's a couple books that, along your path, you've picked up and been like, holy Dinah, that was a good book. What are some books?
2 books. One,
okay,
Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. And the other one very recently, Ken Dryden's book, Game Changer.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's 3 or 4 years old. Actually, I have a copy of it in my shelf there. Talks about hockey and how the game has changed and how the injuries have increased and how you could prevent them and not wreck the game of hockey. he comes up with solutions too, just not complaints. It started with all the brain injuries and the fights, and it's a great book for any hockey enthusiast. I would recommend that.
All I can think of is I don't want problems, I want solutions.
Yes, he's got solutions for it too.
Well, your final question before I let you go. If you could have been a doctor for any sports franchise, what one would you want it to be?
I would have probably any sports franchise.
Any sport, yeah.
Any sports franchise.
You could have went home and been cricket.
See, like rowing, there is no franchise of rowing. They're still amateurs.
Okay.
There's no such rowing.
But you could be the doctor for the Canadian Rowing Club.
Team. I did apply.
Did you?
Yes, when I first came. But the big city folks usually got the first crack at it. So the next one franchise would, if I want to be a doctor, I'd probably be the Edmonton Oilers.
Well, that's not a bad
because it's close
choice.
to home.
Yeah.
Close to home. Edmonton Oilers would be my choice.
To go all the way back to where I started you with India, what's the biggest sport there? Is it cricket?
It's cricket.
And what is the fanfare like for a cricket game over in India? Like comparison, is there anything like, is it a football game or like
between 70,000 to 100,000 people
for a cricket game?
Depending on the stadium.
And how long a cricket game last?
Well, once upon a time they used to be 5 days, but now 1 day games.
So growing up, were they 5-day games?
Growing up was 5 day games.
And you get 70,000 people watching that?
Yes, they do. But it's a giant picnic.
How is that entertaining?
50 to 70 when I grew up, because the stadiums were not that big, but now they built bigger stadiums. So now 70 to 100,000 is quite common because it's 1 day games. It's just 1 day. And it's fast and furious and aggressive cricket. I'm saying hockey. Aggressive cricket. People take chances and they score and they're not conservative. So it's quite exciting now. When I grew up, if I went to 2 of the 5 days, that was a big deal because it was sometimes very boring. The games would end in a draw. Now you don't go to a game where nobody wins. It's boring. So that's the way cricket was, but not anymore. It's probably on a par with how much the players are made with basketball and the NFL. Players make a lot of money now.
For cricket?
For cricket.
Really?
Yeah, because they have it in all the Commonwealth countries. All the Commonwealth countries. West Indies, Australia, New Zealand, India, Sri Lanka, you go South Africa, England. It's big.
So growing up in school, did you play cricket in school? Did they have like a school team of cricket?
Yes, they had a school team.
Would you play a 5-day game?
No, we just played 1 day games because it was not 5 days in school. That's professionals played 5 days. We would play a day. Well, no, 2 days. Sometimes it took 2 days to play. Yeah, it did take 2 days sometimes because you had to finish a certain number of overs, and an over is six times the fellow throws the ball at you. 6 times the fellow throws the ball at you. So it's called overs. So you had to play a certain number of overs. So sometimes it took 2 days to finish it.
Could probably have a 2-hour podcast on cricket, to be completely honest.
That's it's very popular now in many parts of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed talking with you, hearing a bit about your life and time. Well, I mean, a lifetime now in Lloyd, and some of the history of the hockey and just the rowing and everything else. It's been really fascinating for me.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fixture in this community now, and I enjoy it. It's one of the best communities I believe, and I normally tell my friends in central Canada that Lloydminster is the capital of Western Canada and should be the capital of Canada.
Well, thanks again, Raf.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, folks, thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumble on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Shaun Newman podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.